believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Hello, everyone. Tom McDonald from the NABC Championship Webinar Series. I'm on the board of directors, and I'm the 2-year college coach rep, and I've also worked for Championship Productions for like 20 years. A special thanks before we introduce Ben McCollum to Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, Troy Hilton, NABC staff. They've been unbelievably supportive and encouraging, and social media, all the hard work getting this stuff out, and the sheer amount of just great attendance. The gun for making all this happen. Sideline Interactive is going to give away a 8-foot LED board for your sideline. Free shipping, over $11,000 value. Craig Reed from KBA has helped out unbelievably, giving clipboards, marker boards, magnetic boards to the coaches that are stuck at home that we're going to speak. And he's been unbelievable at just getting stuff and resources for these coaches to present. Mike Bray, past president of NABC, has been so helpful and supportive, and anything he could do he's done. He spoke. Just a great resource for us. And then Jamie Dixon is now the current president. And the rest of the board of directors have been so helpful in social media, speaking, their time, efforts. Bill Bergen, Championship Productions, Nate Landis, Daryl Bennett, and all their work in hosting all these things. Before I introduce Ben McCollum from Northwest Missouri State, I just want to go through his bio because it is unbelievable. Head coach at Northwest Missouri State, career record 241-79. In their conference, he's 149-52. He was the 2009 John McClendon National Coach of the Year in all divisions. 2019 Kansas City Sports Award Coach of the Year, and he's been an NABC member for 12. There's more. I just want to give you a real good glimpse at the success. And he's going to talk about culture, team building, and how when he took over the program, and then to the evolution of his offense. But just think, in the last 2 years, he is 69-1. Unbelievable. Like I said, his career record: 7-time NCAA, 2 national championships, 8-time MIAA regular season champion, tournament champion, 3-time NABC Division II Coach of the Year. He's this year's Division II national champ. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that, should I, Coach? So
well, I wish we were.
So where were you at when it all went down? Where were you at?
I was in practice. So we were in practice at the time, and I kind of knew it was coming because they had canceled fans at that point. And so you assume that the next step was to cancel the whole thing. And, our athletic director, actually, he wasn't our athletic director. Our former athletic director, who was the site rep, came in and just said, hey, they're shutting it down, and that's it. And so middle of practice, we canceled the practice, and I just said, hey, guys, I'm usually not speechless, but today I'm speechless, and going to need about an hour to collect my thoughts, and then we'll talk again. I think the beauty for us is we have a lot of kids returning, and we had kids that had a lot of success. I think the tough part is some of those seniors, they didn't get an opportunity to see where they could have gone, whether it's be win or lose. I'm a competitor, and my big thing is you either win or lose your last game, but you have to do one of them. And we weren't fortunate enough to do that, but we understand the circumstances, and we still have a lot of great memories from this season, 31-1, and from our 4-year kid, Ryan Welty, Tyler Doherty, and Kirk Finley. Those three, they were 131-6 over 4 seasons. And so they lost 6 games in 4 seasons. And, it says a lot about those kids. And anytime I get an opportunity to highlight them, I make sure that I do that.
That's awesome. So the first question I want to ask you, Coach, is this. Knowing a little about you from people in Iowa, they said education is pretty important. So let me ask you, like, in your background, who was instrumental in putting you on this path to be the head coach and the unbelievable success you've had?
I think there's 2 parts to that. So I'll go with the first part and then on to the second. And the first part is kind of why I got into coaching and why I think, I guess, doing these clinics, why I think that being a part of a coaching community, giving back to the coaching community is important. When I was a young kid, parents got a divorce, and I grew up with a single mother for not all my life, but for a good portion of it. So as I was growing up, a lot of my male influences, a lot of just my influences, female or male, came from my coaches and the youth coaches and those guys that took extra time to make sure that I was at practice, that I was working hard, that all those different things, that I had the right attitude, that I had plenty of opportunities and plenty of love from a male figure. So, why I got into coaching is specific to that is I wanted to give back what was given to me. And so that's why coaching is so important, and making sure that you do it for the right reasons and making sure that you're making a difference on kids' lives. Second part of that is my mother. She probably drove me as much as any. She is as tough as they get, and she was tough on me. And so, that helped me growing up. It became ultra competitive. I worked as hard as I possibly could at everything, and honestly, she kind of made me feel like I could accomplish anything. And I always say that coaching is about working your way out of a job. So is parenting, in my opinion. The quicker you can work your way out of a job, that means you did your job as a parent, and she did her job as a parent, and I felt like made me a good productive person, and hopefully I can make that difference in other people's lives.
She's got to be pretty proud. So my next question is, as you've gone, you played at you're at your alma mater. What's it been like to play, be an assistant coach, GA, and then go away and come back in the success you've had? So what's that evolution been like?
Yeah, so for me, just to kind of give you, for people that don't know anything about our program or myself, it kind of gives you some background. Grew up in Northwest Iowa, went junior college, played junior college, then played here at Northwest Missouri State for a guy named Steve Tapmeyer. He was probably, if he wasn't the best Division II coach in the country at the time, he was one of the best, and taught me everything about culture and how to demand the best out of everybody and how to be consistent daily. I actually was going to be I actually graduated with a finance degree after I played, and went to work for Wells Fargo for about 3 months and realized that coaching is what I wanted to do. I paid for my own way of graduate school that first year and was a graduate assistant for Northwest Missouri State. The second year they paid for it, and I was a graduate assistant, full-time graduate assistant. After that, I was fortunate enough to work for a guy named David Moe. Some of the basketball guys here that are on probably recognize the Moe name from Doug Moe. He was the head coach of the Nuggets, I believe, for the Spurs, the Iceman, and had a cup of tea with Philadelphia as well, I think. So I learned a lot from him in regards to the offensive side of the basketball and just overall basketball feel. And then at about 26 or 27, I would say it was, I got the head coaching job here at Northwest. I was the youngest head coach in Division II. The transition is interesting, and I've got some that'll kind of lead me into my first advice stuff, but I'll finish the answer to this question. It was interesting because I believe I got the job right around my birthday, which was April 12th, somewhere in that range. And when you're an assistant, and some of the assistants that are on here can probably understand that, you literally have every answer. Like, everything about everything. And your head coach is always wrong. You may not say it, but you're always right. And once I got the head job, I was wrong a lot and realized how little I knew. So it was interesting, but there's a lot of mistakes that I made through that process. It was a fun process, but there's a lot of things that I thought we did well, and part of those were just somewhat accidental.
Coach, I'm going to turn this thing over to you to go through your PowerPoint, your presentation, and then I'll break in once in a while when there's some questions. So when you see me come back up, I may have a couple questions for you, okay?
Okay, that'll be great.
Thanks, Coach.
So I'm gonna share this screen here, and it's gonna be a PowerPoint. It's not gonna be necessarily an unbelievable PowerPoint, but it'll at least share the message here. So let's just make sure. Is that shared there, Tom?
Looks good to me. Looks good.
Okay, so it's just a simple, just to kind of keep on track with everybody. So the first things I'll give everyone is two different stories, kind of food for thought, and I'll give a lot of food for thought throughout, where it's just random lists to just pick and choose what you want to use for you with your program. The first thing will be the best advice that I've ever been given as a coach. I was an assistant at Emporia State, and there was a guy named Brandon Schneider, and some people may recognize his name. He is now the women's coach at University of Kansas. And I went into his office after I'd gotten the job, and I said, "Hey, what is the best advice you can possibly give me as a head coach, as a new head coach?" And he said, "You just got to be yourself." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's not like earth-shattering advice. It's not something that is going to really help me that much, but okay, I'll just go be myself." And I kind of just blew it off and just thought, okay, I'll be myself. Well, I got into my first year of coaching, and it wasn't always, it wasn't always 131-6. So my first season, we were 12-15. My second season, we were actually 10-16. We got worse. So my first year, going back to that advice, I tried to be Steve Tapmeyer, who was my old head coach, and he was unreal at getting the most out of people, and ran it just a little bit differently than how I did it. More of an old school approach, and was demanding and tough, and his teams were physical, and I thought that was the way that I had to coach. Not necessarily the right way, because there's a lot of right ways, but how I had to coach. So I tried to be Steve Tapmeyer. My second season, so we were 12-15. My second season, I'm like, boy, that didn't work very well. So now I'm going to try to be David Moe, who was my head coach at Emporia State. And so for the whole season, I tried to be David Moe. I tried to be a little bit, for lack of a better way to say it, a little more goofy, a little more passive with things, just different. It's just different. And finished 10-16. So I kind of woke up one day and I thought, man, I'm in here in Maryville, Missouri. I've got 2 kids and a wife and a house that I need to pay for, not making a whole lot of money anyway, and I'm about to get fired. So I probably should be Ben McCollum at that point. And so from then on forward, I said, I'm just going to be myself. If that's wrong, I'm going to take bits and pieces of Steve Tapmeyer and David Moe, but be myself most importantly, and coach how I think it should be done, while still making sure that I use bits and pieces from everybody else. And so if you become a new head coach, or you are a new head coach, don't be afraid to do it differently, but make sure that, Kevin Eastman always says big ear, small mouth, but make sure you listen as well. On top of that, the second thing I'll give you, just be convicted. The best coaches that I've been around are very convicted in what they do. When I was hiring a GA, it was after my second season. This was kind of another lesson for me. He came in and he goes, well, at the end of the day, what do you hang your hat on? And I said, I kind of froze, and I really didn't know. I didn't know what it was that we really hung our hat on necessarily. I couldn't identify it. And it sent a message to me to make sure that I was convicted in exactly what I thought we should be doing. And that will filter throughout your program and hopefully give you a great deal of success. After that 10-16 season, so now we're going into my third season, we won the conference our third season. So we went from 10-16 and didn't make the conference tournament to winning the conference in one season. That very next season, I thought, man, what changed? Why were we able to have that much success after that much defeat? And I came up with just a list of 10 different things that I thought we did well. This is not necessarily a list of, things, the cultural values or whatever it may be. We don't have a lot of those cultural values written down. I'm not a big believer in those big, long lists. I'm more of a very simplistic approach guy. But these are 10 things that I thought we did that really got us going and got us to the point where we're at now, where the last 2 seasons we're 69-1, and really helps our culture and helps continue that culture. And I'll go through them fairly quick and have a few stories for some of them. I'm going to move this to the next slide here. Okay. So these are the 10 things, and then I'm going to stop the share so that you don't necessarily have to look at that screen the whole time. Not that I'm that much more attractive, but sometimes it's good to see somebody, I guess, during the quarantine. So the first thing that we did, I walked into my assistant's office the very first day. I walked into my assistant's office and I said, guys, we're going to win basketball games, okay? But our number one objective, and this will go with, I think it's number 8, is process focus. Our number one objective is to make kids successful once they leave our program. So everything that we do needs to be tailored towards that. So winning games is a byproduct of us making kids successful. And so we put all of our attention on improving kids' lives, making sure that they were mentally tougher, making sure that they were better husbands by their fathers, and they learned that through basketball. And that was our primary focus throughout our whole first season, and that was intentional. A lot of the things that I'll share with you weren't necessarily intentional. I just started to notice, well, that just kind of happened. But that was, and I think if you're running any program, and I speak to some businesses as well, if you have any business, your objective is to make sure you take care of those people, make sure you love them, and to make sure that they're successful once they leave, that you make them better because they were there. If your focus is solely on that, your results will take care of themselves. The second thing that I thought we did, and again, this was pretty intentional as well, get the right people, and for high school coaches, or develop the right people from a very young age. So for us, one of my favorite books is Good to Great. Well, it is my favorite book. And it talks a lot about making sure that you get the right people. So for us, the right people were what I call first place guys. When I came to Northwest Missouri State, I had come from junior college and even in high school. So what's a first place guy? In high school, we had finished second, third, and I always thought, okay, yeah, we're good enough. We're all right. And then in junior college, I thought, I finished second and third. We're good. And you could kind of, you could sleep at night knowing that you did well. When I came to Northwest Missouri State, they had been first. And so what we always say is there's a big difference between first and second place. So second and third, we've always felt like there's not a huge gap. Third and fourth, second and fourth, not huge gaps. But first and second place and first and second place people, to me, there's a massive gap between them. And I didn't realize that until I finished second and third, or whatever we finished in junior college and high school, and I had never finished first place. Came here and we finished first. And I realized there was a difference between those guys and what they were doing and somebody that finished second. And so you can fool yourself into thinking that second place guys are good enough to finish first. They're not. So what we recruited, and I'll just give you a few things that we specifically looked at. What makes a first place guy? An extreme work ethic. They're unselfish, serves others. They're grateful. But the big thing for us is they're not moody. It's like my thing. I can't stand moody people, moody kids. It just sucks the life out of me. So we try to search for energy givers. If we can't find energy givers, we do not take guys that are in bad moods. It just sucks the life out of your culture. So that was a big thing with first place people and second place people that I noticed there was a consistent difference with. The last thing we wanted to make sure that we also, I think it was John Thompson that it was a quote either about Allen Iverson or DeMarcus Cousins. So don't I guess misquote me on this. He said, we want to make sure that we recruit people that haven't, you can tame a fool a lot quicker than you can resurrect a corpse. And so for us, we wanted somebody with an edge. So that was the big thing at Georgetown with Allen Iverson. And then I think he said it about DeMarcus Cousins at Kentucky. So we want guys with an edge that we can tame a little bit and kind of whittle them down and calm them down. The third thing that we wanted or did when we first got our job that, again, I thought made a big difference. And this was actually throughout my second season. So be the change you want to see in others. That's a quote, I believe it's by Gandhi. If you want your team to play a certain way, then you have to be a certain way. And again, that's one of those simplistic things that is like obvious. Just a quick story on this, and I've told this story quite a bit to various coaches, just giving advice. It was, I think, my second season. We were on I don't know if it was a 7, 8, 9 game losing streak. We were bad. And we went to a school in our league, and I thought they were worse. And I had this unbelievable scouting report. We were so focused. I'm sitting there, this is finally the game that we're actually going to win. And we get into the game, and it's one of those games that's back and forth. We're up 3, down 2, up 5, down 1, whatever it may be. And I noticed that I'm getting frustrated, and our team's playing frustrated, and it's just one of those frustrating games because, just because I thought that we should have performed at a higher level because I felt like this was our opportunity to actually win. We get done with the game, and I true story, I walk out of the gym. It's a road game. We get on the bus, and I call my mother. We talked about that to start, that she was a big influence on me. And I call her, and I said, Mom, I'm done coaching. I'm done. I can't coach. I'm not any good at this. We had lost so many in a row. We were just terrible. And she says, okay, well, just don't quit tonight. Just, let's sleep on it. And so she kind of stayed on the phone, and eventually she says, well, what happened? Like, what's the problem? And I said, well, my team, they just played so frustrated. And it was just like, we should have won. I felt like we were prepared, et cetera, et cetera. And she says, okay. She goes, well, what'd you say to him? And I said, well, I told him to stop playing so frustrated. And she says, okay, well, say it to me how you said it to them. And I said, stop playing so frustrated. And I'm like, oh, they were feeding off of my emotion and my energy. And for a year and a half, I could never understand that. And so making sure, and we say, be the change you want to see in others. If you are constantly complaining about your team not doing this or emotionally not there, whatever it may be, the first person you need to look at is yourself. Because I would guess they're feeding off of your energy and the things that you do. And so make sure that you're the change you want to see in others. That's what I felt like we were early on in this career, or early on in our program. After that, we actually finished the season. I think we finished the season 6-3, something like that, and had lost a lot of games. We actually ended up going to a team in our league that was number 3 in the country at the time. And we went out there, and I actually sat somebody that was kind of an energy vampire. And I said, okay, I'm going to be positive this whole game. Like, they're going to feed off my positive energy. And so we get into the game. It's back and forth. At halftime, we're down 15. I'm still energetic. 10 minutes to go, we're down 10. 5 minutes to go, we're down 5. I'm still positive, and I'm like, this positive stuff must work. And so we ended up winning that game, broke a huge winning streak at their place, and kind of a big deal. But I realized the importance of my energy on my team. So I'll try to speed through these a little bit more so we can get to some film. Number 4 was find people's strengths as it pertains to the team and encourage them to work towards those rather than discourage their weakness. And this is a big thing for offense, for defense, for anything, is if you can find and again, this was something that wasn't intentional with us. It's just something that we did those first 2 seasons. If you can find what people are great at and really encourage them to be great at more things and good at less things, a lot of times they will flourish. They will become more confident. So a lot of people talk about player development. Our player development comes from getting people to play to their strengths and getting them to be great at 2 things or 3 things or 1 thing, if that's all they can be great at. It helps kids develop a sense of confidence, and it helps them to understand what they're supposed to do. If I tell a kid what he's not supposed to do consistently, he has about 1 million other things that he then can do. So we'd rather have him confidently go a direction than be told that's the wrong direction, that's the wrong direction, that's the wrong direction. And I think that's why our kids, especially offensively, play with a great deal of confidence, a great deal of freedom, and we play fast and free of mind. The 5th thing that I thought we did, we developed buy-in early on, and I put a question there, how do you do this? The new age, so when I went to college, the big thing that you had to do in order to play for your coach was to respect him. And that's all you really needed. Like, I just had to respect Steve Tapmeyer, and I was going to play for him, and I was going to give everything that I got. And I respected the heck out of him. He was as good a coach as there is. David Moe, I respected him, so I would work hard for him. It's new with today's kids. So what we say is you have to make sure that they not only respect you, but they like you. And so for us, and that's a fine line between being their friend and making sure that they just like you. For us, how do you get them to respect you and like you? I'm naturally an old school type of mentality. I guess players coach that's thrown around so loosely. I'm not necessarily that, but I develop great relationships with my kids. Couple ways we do that. Number one, it doesn't change. You need to make sure that you're brutally honest with kids. That's one thing that we made sure that was a habit. And there's a big difference between being brutally honest and being mean. The second thing we did was we cared for them. We loved them, genuinely did that. We spent a lot of time on them. So I always say, what kind of office guy are you? When our kids walk by my office and I'm doing something, the first thing that I do is shut my computer or whatever I'm working on, set it down, kick up my feet, and I sit there and I talk to them for as long as I can talk to them. Because that's how you develop that relationship. That's how you win basketball games. That film can wait. That relationship cannot. And they have to. Today's kids have to like and respect you. And those are some ideas. The other thing I did, we had study hall. For my study hall, they'd just be sitting on my couch, and then we'd just talk, essentially. And then the last thing, understand their generation, whether it be music or, I've had to be a bigger fan of whatever music it is. Some people like country, some people like rap. So I kind of know it all just to make sure that I can get in their generation and understand them on their level. The 6th thing I thought we did well early on to be able to develop the culture that we currently have, I had to be, and our staff had to be energy givers. If you're not one, make sure you find one. The big thing with that is if, like Brad Stevens talks, and he said that you can be an energy giver, you can be kind of status quo energy, but you can't be an energy taker. And so he would say that him in particular was kind of just status quo energy, just kind of wouldn't affect it one way or the other. And so for us, I'm naturally an energy giver. I just have a lot of it. And so we didn't necessarily need to have high energy kids in our program. We needed to make sure that we were not getting the low energy kids that would suck the life out of the program, but we just needed to make sure that they had positive energy and throughout. And we did that. That's what we really looked at in our recruiting process. The 7th thing that I thought we did early on that I thought really helped us, find 2 to 3 things that you can be great at as a team. And then as a coach, make sure that you hold them accountable consistently. One of those for us is mental toughness. So if you go into somebody's practice and you watch their practice and you cannot pick up what one or two things that they are about, essentially, they did not have a good practice. So every single day in our practice, you should hear something about making sure that our body language is good, making sure that we're positive with each other, making sure that we touch lines, making sure that we count our reps in the weight room. We feel like mental toughness, just like a bicep, if you're doing curls for a bicep, you can build that muscle. That's the same concept for us. We want to build that mental toughness muscle through the things that we can do. And so if we can objectively find things to do to build that, that's what we're going to do. And we preach that every single day. We emphasize it from day one to the end of the season. And we wanted to make sure that we were great at 2 or 3 different things. And so the rest is, offense and defense, philosophical stuff, but make sure that those things are hammered constantly. The 8th thing that I thought we did well, we were very process focused. In today's immediate gratification culture, this is excruciatingly difficult. That's why I think you can gain huge advantages if you can stay very process focused. And we do celebrate victories and celebrate things and those sort of things. We try not to celebrate everything. We try to get right back to work and be very process focused, because we know that's the only way to sustain success. And that also goes back to my first thing of making people successful once they leave your program. If your focus is developing those kids, you will stay process focused at all times. It's not about getting to a certain point, winning a certain amount of games, winning championships, et cetera, et cetera. That is a byproduct of your process. So we focus solely on process and do that throughout our whole program. The 9th thing that I thought we did, we serve and we place an emphasis. We don't just say it. We actually do this. First day of every practice, or first day of every season, we spend an entire day picking up invocation. They sit down chairs and then they put down mats on our gym floor, and we make our kids pick up our entire gym first day, and we say, hey, you're not here for you. You're here for everybody else. You need to make sure that you serve, and we place an emphasis on that throughout. The 10th thing, I think that, again, that we did a good job of early is we kept things very, very simple. And I'll go through that when I go through some of our offensive stuff. You'll see the simplicity of it, but yet how we try to complicate that simple.
Coach, can I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Addition by subtraction in terms of players who are negative or hurting the program because of their attitude or their choices. Is that something you've had to run into or you believe in, or?
Yeah, so I do. So first off, we try to vet that before they come in, would be the first thing. The second part of that is I read a book, I believe it's called 5 Temptations of a CEO, and they talked about accountability and how to actually properly hold somebody accountable. And it talked about the culture will eliminate those kids naturally. So you don't have to necessarily kick them off. And you make the culture so essentially difficult with such high standards that those kids naturally will just leave. And we've had probably 4 or 5 kids throughout our years that on a mutual decision or even their decision just said, I just can't do it in this program. It's just not for me. And it was because they were energy vampires or whatnot. Just had low energy. Great kids, good kids, phenomenal kids. But just the energy wasn't there and their moods were just too hard to overcome. So I completely agree that there is addition by subtraction. I don't feel like you can be productive as a program with, I guess, what John Gordon would call energy vampires.
So question on captains. How do you choose them? How do you teach them?
We don't choose captains. We don't have captains. We have guys that are leaders. and the guys who are supposed to lead will lead. And we try to preach leadership and try to teach them how to lead throughout the whole program. And a lot of that's just teaching them how to talk to each other, how to problem solve, and not when things are going right, when things are going wrong. Okay, so I make a bad pass. How do I respond? Do I make a bad pass, but my guy should have cut open? Okay, so we will talk a lot about how you're supposed to then problem solve. All right, you need to make sure that you pop open so that I can get this past you. Okay, make sure that I'm open. Make sure we get eye contact. Great. Boom. Next thing. No need to pout. No need to get mad at each other. It is a conversation, a dialogue that's not sensitive, that's problem solving, and very, very direct and very honest. And so we make sure that we preach that throughout. And I think that helps naturally uplift who is supposed to lead. But I don't know, if you identify captains, that's like hiring a manager, in my opinion. So managers, they're the boss, right? Okay, they naturally have position power. So you identify captains, that's your position power. I think in a football, like, it's important to have captains because the variety of numbers, you just probably have to identify them to make sure you can kind of control things. In basketball, the numbers are so low that who is going to lead is going to lead. Find those guys, build them up, and then they'll naturally lead. They don't need a title to be able to do that, in my opinion. But again, we keep things very simple. I've seen people with stacks this big of all the program rules and, here's our 10 tenets of trust, unity, and whatever it may be. And that's just not us. Those things should naturally happen if you recruit the right kids and you preach it constantly.
These two questions may go together. I hope they do. What do you look for in players? And then how do you choose your starters? Those are the two questions.
Oh, geez. First thing, what do I look for in players? Objectively, meaning like tangible talent stuff, guys who can play. Pretty good, and it sounds dumb, but we like to find tangible talent. Like, can he play basketball or can he not? Like, a lot of people, he can, and it's funny. That's why we have kids at our roster that probably are well above our level, just because we try to trust our eyes and find guys that can really play basketball. They have a feel. They move the basketball correctly. The skill set that we'd look for, can they shoot, would be a huge one. But, there's some guys that can't shoot that have another strength, whether it be passing or rebounding or defending or whatever it may be. But, can they play basketball? Like, it's just such a subjective thing that you can't really – everybody tries to objectify like it's football, like what's his 40 time, what's his bench press, what's his that, what's his that. Basketball's not that way. Can he play or can he not? What skill set does he have with that ability to play is what we look for. What was the second thing?
Starters.
Whoever the best players are. Yeah, simple. Just find the best players. We play 6. If you look at our roster, we will play 6 to 7 guys. We've had years where we played 10. But my thing is again, it's basketball. You have media timeouts. It's 40 minutes. You can play guys for extent. We'll play 3 guys 40 minutes a game and won't take them out one time. Starters is the best 5. And then if they get tired, then you take them out. And that's just how we've always done it.
Red shirting. Do you utilize it much?
A lot. We use it a lot. We've got a kid that was, an All-American point guard that redshirted, another guy that redshirted that averaged 23 a game for us, 6'7", 6'8" kid. I've got a couple kids overseas playing pro point guards that all redshirted. So, yeah, we love redshirting. What we found is if kids are willing to redshirt, a lot of times they're very invested in their development. They're very invested in our program, and they're invested in what's best for the program as well.
This is my last question. I turn it back to you, and you can roll. You mentioned Stockdale paradox with regards to your conditioning as a way of building mental toughness. Could you please explain how that works?
Yeah, no, I did that today. I didn't even mention it, but it's one thing that I would always look up if I was a new coach, and just it's from good to great, Stockdale Paradox, and it just talks about not being the optimist, just making sure that you face the brutal facts of your current reality. It's a long story, but it is definitely worth the time to go look up the Stockdale Paradox and Good to Great, and that'll help your mental toughness. It'll also help you make sure that you keep yourself going if you're having rough years, to make sure that you face the current situation, the process that you're currently in.
And I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
We've talked a couple times before you spoke in Kansas City, which was unbelievable. My question is this: you play 5, 6, 7, but you said you played 10. When you have that good a team and you've got young men that are sitting on the bench, this is the question from one of the coaches: how do you handle those bench guys that don't get to play very much?
Good question. So we have what do we have on our roster this year? Maybe 11 on our roster, somewhere in that range. So we keep a very, very small roster anyway. And as long as you identify kids that want to work, that are willing to fight for their spot, that are willing to compete for their spot, you don't have a ton of issues. The issues arise when you recruit in the recruiting process, and I don't know how I do it high school wise, but for college in the recruiting process, we are brutally honest with kids. And we tell them, we will never promise that you will play. Sometimes I almost unrecruit kids. I almost tell them, hey, you're not going to make it here. It's probably not going to happen for you. And if you're honest with them in that recruiting process, kids can handle that. What I found that a lot of kids that transfer because they're not playing comes from coaches recruiting and not being honest with them because they're trying to get a player. And if you're honest, we found that kids will stick it out. Kids will fight for that spot. I've had kids that have been here for 5 years that barely played, and they were on full scholarships. And I've had kids that play as true freshmen. And as long as you're brutally honest up front, every kid can handle that. As long as you love, number 10 as much as you love number 1, kids can handle it.
Coach, you got as long as you want. We don't have any coaches behind you, so I'm going to turn it to you to talk about offense, and you can go as long as you'd like.
Oh, boy. Okay, I'll just give, and you can, if you interject with some questions, that's fine too.
Yep.
I'll give you the evolution of our offense, and I think my share is still up here. I'm going to click to the next slide, and then I'm going to give you a few things. So these are just some of our offensive statistics from just this season. So we were number 1 in points per possession, 1.1. That's over all levels. Our effective field, you can see the other stats, number 1, number 2 in points per possession. Our effective field goal percentage was 63.1%. If that was in Division I, and don't totally quote me on this, but I'm pretty certain these numbers are accurate, we would be the highest in the history of Ken Palm ratings in regards to effective field goal percentage. Now, obviously, there's not as much shot blocking at our level, but that kind of is more three-point shooting. You can see our three-point percentage, 45.7%. That, again, I think would be the highest in the history of NCAA basketball, 45.7. I think it was 3 or 4 percentage points higher than the Division I leader, but I'm not 100% certain on that one. Consistently in the top 5 in the country in fewest turnovers. The best compliment that I've ever been given in regards to our offense is they won't blow you away with their schemes. And so I'm going to go through just a few food for thought, and then how we came up with what we do offensively. So maybe you can pull some things out of this. I'm not saying you should necessarily do what we do, but I think it may help you quite a bit just building your own offense. You can kind of see the progression of where we started, and you'll see even the crowd and how limited it was and how bad we were, to where we've come offensively, and hopefully that'll give some people some hope. Just a couple food for thoughts. As we built our offense, we actually although I put those numbers up on the share there, we actually don't take into account analytics when we built our offense. We just wanted to get the best shot we could possibly get, and through threes and layups and going to the free throw line, that just naturally happened. We shoot, I think on the season, we probably shot 10, 15 footers max, maybe. We don't shoot a ton of them. The year before, we shot even less. But it's not something that we preach constantly. It's just something that happens if you've got a lot of shooters and you got guys that can finish at the rim. So that was the first kind of food for thought. The second one, and I'll just read it off of here. Our offense is designed to eliminate the coach from the game, make your opponent depend on fundamentals. And so coach versus teacher is what we always say. So if I can eliminate that coach and his scheme from the game and make it to where it's teaching versus teaching, that's our objective with how we run our offense. One other thing is kind of football versus basketball mentality. I think a lot of times in basketball, coaches will try to make it more of a point A to point B football mentality. We try to make it more of a basketball mentality. So what I mean by that, and I'll just read it again, what a lot of coaches do is try to eliminate decision-making through schemes and coaching. So, and then what we try to do is improve decision-making through teaching. And so with that, what we try to do is like other coaches will scheme us, or they'll overcoach, or they'll have a variety of offensive schemes to where they're running so many different plays and so many different things that what naturally happens is it eliminates kids' ability to decision make. What we try to do is teach through basic fundamentals, allow that freedom and flexibility, and teach kids how to make decisions on their own. We feel like the game is too fast to over scheme and to over coach. And so we try to get out of the way of our players. Another thing, food for thought wise, the quickest way to hurt your teaching, is making your players constantly think about what scheme or play coach wants. And so let me repeat that because I kind of stumbled through it. I can't read my own handwriting. Quickest way to hurt your teaching is constantly making your players think about what coach wants rather than what they've been taught. And so again, that goes back to the scheme and allowing players to play. We want players to read and make decisions based on what they've been taught. We want teacher versus teacher in games, player versus player, not coach versus coach. And all that, again, goes back to teaching kids how to make decisions and on through. Basketball offense requires great decision makers, and that's what we want. And then I'll get into our offense here. Choosing an offense, and I'll keep this a little bit shorter. These are some things to consider that, we've considered throughout. Your personnel, what does your personnel look like? How am I going to attack the paint? Do I have shooters? Do I have drivers? Do I have cutters, et cetera, et cetera? Our offense changes every single year. It looks the same, but it changes based on the personnel that we have. And we look for various things based on the personnel. So we don't put our offense in for 4 to 6 weeks because we want to identify what we actually have. Number 2, how to beat the best. You see every single coach in the country that gets a job, and they say, we're going to play fast. And it's funny because there was a little deal on Twitter that I saw, and it had all the different coaches last year that got the job, and they're trying to sell something that they play fast, and then accused to Tony Bennett when he got his job, and it says, well, we're going to play the way we need to play to beat the best. And so for him, it's a little bit slower and obviously dependent on his defense, and so that's what he chooses to beat the best. For us, it's being efficient offensively and defensively. 3, what do you love to coach? Make sure that you pick an offense that you love to coach. 4, how much time do you want to spend on offense? You know, if it's a motion, a true motion, you have to spend more time on it. If it's plays, you probably have to spend more time on the execution. You know, how much time do you want to spend on it? And do we want freedom or do we want control? For us, we want freedom. We want freedom of movement. We want guys to understand how to play rather than always looking over at coach and me having to coach the whole game. We want them to be taught. For us, we run a lot of ball screen / pick and roll. Here's a few reasons. Here's a few reasons why we chose that, and then I'll go to kind of the evolution of where we've come to now. The best thing about ball screens is that you always have a shot. The worst thing about ball screens and pick and rolls is that you always have a shot. So you have to be careful in making sure that you define roles and understand that ball screens, they're very addictive, and you can get carried away taking bad shot after bad shot. So you have to understand why you're running them. 2, ball screens, they always have a counter to every defense that you do, and this is why, again, we want decision makers, is any defense that you play against us, we have a counter to it. Good offense beats good defense, and I consider myself a defensive coach. I'm fairly defensive-minded, but good offense always beats good defense, in my opinion. 3, why to run ball screens, can control where the ball goes. 4, can expose mismatches and bad defenders. We do a lot of that. 5, it does not require a lot of practice time. So for us, our practices will consist of about 70% defense. And the reason we went to ball screens was because I wanted to protect our defense, and I felt like this was the best offense to be able to take care of the basketball and really protect our half-court defense. And that's why we became so good offensively, because our focus was on defense. 6, you have to have an elite playmaker. So a lot of people will run continuity ball screen offenses. That's not what we run. It's how it started. But you have to have an elite playmaker that can break things down throughout a possession to make sure that you can get a shot, is what we have found. Guys that run ball screens without that can be defended. We want to make sure, again, that we can beat the best. In order to beat the best and run ball screens, it is imperative that you have an elite playmaker, an elite paint getter. So the evolution of our offense, and I'll just keep this up for a split second, and then I'm going to stop the share, and then I'm going to go to some film, and it'll be just kind of a short film breakdown. So what we started with patterns. And so our first pattern was fist. I'll show you that here in a sec. Our second pattern was fist with a pop. So fist became guarded, and then the second one was fist with a pop threat to where we add space. Our third one was 5-game. These are all continuity ball screen offenses. Our fourth one, we went to Euro when we had a little bit more shooting. I came from the school of Doug Moe and David Moe that allowed freedom of movement. He never wanted to control movements, and that's what I always wanted to go to. And so one day we decided to combine all of those different continuity offenses, add about 20 other different types of ball screen, and then about 5 or 6 other types of cuts, and create a motion out of it where guys just play, and they play with freedom. And it's a motion similar to, a mover blocker or whatever motion you want to have, where there's complete freedom. We try not to control their movements. Obviously they have ideas, hey, we like this against this, we like that against that, but their movements aren't controlled. They're all very read based. Whereas against continuities, a lot of times it's point A to point B. And then, the coach from the sideline calls something, whether it's a counter to ice, a counter to that, a counter to switch. We don't do that. Our kids just naturally counter most things based on their teaching in practice. So let me show you a few of these on film. Let's stop this share. I'm going to try to share. try to share it. There we are. So I didn't do a ton because I thought that I could get less, that I could show less and hopefully get more. Can you see this, Tom?
What's that, Coach?
Can you see the film?
Yep, looks, yeah. Lonnie,
Okay.
do you want to, Lonnie, do you want to tell Coach the one thing he could do to make it a little sharper?
Well, this is old film, so it's not going to matter.
Okay.
Go ahead and
Go
play it
ahead.
and we'll see how it goes.
It'll
Go
get
ahead, Coach.
sharp. It'll get sharper as the camera improves.
There you go. It looks good though.
Yeah, well, the game doesn't, but yeah. So this was really, really early on in our career, or in my career, I should say. So this is basic fist. So we'll get it to a wing. Okay, we've got two bigs, two true bigs. Okay, we've got the duck in on the kick ahead, and then we've got a weak side kind of KU fist. He's going to cut corner, so you've got this weak side triangle, very common continuity offense. Okay, and then you've got your ball side duck in over here, not a lot of room to drive. Again, this was a long time ago. You can see the crowd not there, and you can kind of see just offensively, you'll see how much it adapts. So we come out, we set the ball screen, duck in this weak side. Obviously, if there's a hedge, you just read this little dive right here. You can read this duck in if there's a pull, big to big right here, top opposite plug. And then you've got this guy trying to take away the duck in as well. So they choose to hedge it. Okay, we're trying to look for that duck in on this pass ahead. We can't get it there. Again, continuity. You'll see a lot of continuities in college basketball. Ball screen, everything's the same. Set the ball screen, kick ahead, duck in that weak side, look for the duck in, and then look to play out of it, where it's very rule-based. Okay, I'll show you one more clip of it. It's all point A to point B. This is how we started our offense when we were a little bit more continuity, control their movements. Fist again, even here, we've got a guard setting it. That's how locked in to our continuity we were, to where we didn't even adjust to how our personnel was. You know, whether it be a shooter, whether it be a driver, whether it be a duck-in threat, we were just going to run what we ran and you know, hope that they didn't counter whatever we were doing. So you'll see again, looking for that duck in, kick ahead, we set the ball screen. Now you got a ball side triangle, which most people know this read. Dive, if they help on the shake, which they do here, and then we look at the dive, the duck in, we hit the throwback right here, throwback 3. Okay, so what started happening is this. Teams started to take us away. So they would either ice us, we didn't have a counter, they would force these guys to score, coming off the ball screen too much. They couldn't score because it was too congested. Okay, they would plug on these elbows quite a bit, and it just became so predictable. They wouldn't let us duck in because this guy would jump above, and it just became so predictable. And again, you'll see a lot of college offenses very similar to this day. Even some of the best coaches in America will keep things very, very point A to point B. It's just not what we believe in. It doesn't make it right or wrong. I don't think play coaches are bad necessarily. It's just what, what we try to do now. We're very convicted. Okay, so that was fist with 2 dive guys. All right, so then we got a guy that could stretch the floor. Okay, his senior year right here, he took, I think, 3 2-pointers, played 40 minutes a game, all-time leader in our conference, 6'7" shooter. He only took 3 or 4 2-pointers his entire senior season. And so all we did was do fist, but we popped him instead of diving it. And so again, everything's a pattern. Okay. Ball screen, chose to refuse it. Swing. Okay, here's our pop threat. He's going to set the screen, come off, and then we hit the pop. Okay, so it's still fist. It's still fist. It just has a pop thread to it now. So it kind of looks a little bit different, and that's what we changed to. It's still patterns. Then teams started to be able to take it away. So then we had to adapt to that and change to something else that I'll show you here in a sec. Again, there's pretty good flow to it. The ball moves. Okay. And then on that one, we ghosted it a little bit, and then we were able to get inside. Okay. So then we went to 5-game, which is a spread pick and roll. I don't have any clips of that. Then we went to Euro, which is what you see in college basketball all the time. Then you can also see the crowd differential as we started to get better and better. We don't use this. We just don't like patterns again. The only times we'll use a pattern is if we're trying to ice a game out or we're just trying to run offense for no reason. Okay, so we set it with a pop threat, kick ahead, cut the top opposite. You'll see this. This is very, very common in all of college basketball. Okay, set the screen, opposite big lifts up the lane line. Okay, maybe look for the duck in, kick ahead, cut the top opposite, swing. Okay, you've got a chance at a refusal possibly. And again, it's just a continuity Euro, and you'll see this a lot in college basketball. We don't like that offense a ton for us, for our personnel, but it's in. We run it probably 5 or 6 times a year, max. Here it is again, lift. Okay, we cut the guy, opposite big lifts, cut the top opposite. Okay, here's why we don't run it and why I went away from it, and then we try to combine everything, is as this guy pops up, okay, if he's early at all, it creates a plug right here. And so as you come off of this ball screen, they'll naturally be plugged up. So the only option you have is that throwback. If teams switch, the only option you have is to go over the top to a big right here. Okay, big to big. I guess it would be a high-low. We found that if you ISO your post too much early in a game, or you try to expose switches too early, a lot of times it makes your offense very stagnant. So we went away from Euro. We went from fist to fist pop to 5-game to Euro, and then we tried to combine everything, and that's what it is now. So we, like for instance, I'll show you this first clip here. Okay, so this first clip, we saw, just like everybody's seen, and they call them double drags, we call them double ball screens. I wanted to put double ball screens into what we did, but I didn't want to have a play that was, double ball screens. So we just put it into our ball screen motion. So our offense can adapt, and it'll look like fist sometimes. It'll look like 5-game sometimes. It'll look like fist with a pop. It'll look like Euro sometimes. It'll look like all kinds of different things, and these guys are all reading everything. This is all a read based on what they see on the floor. So this is a team that iced us, really good team. Okay, and so they decided to double this, and this is one of our screens that we love. I'll give you 2 different screens out of the variety of ball screens that we have. This is a very common one, just a double ball screen with a pop and a dive. Okay, so we chose to dive, they switched the second. Okay, they chose to double it again. Okay, there's a little bit of confusion. That's the guy that shoots only threes, that shot 3. This guy chose to cut. Okay, he chose to dive to here instead of, it kind of opens up the floor. He chose to pass back, and then he chose to shoot. Just a double ball screen that you could probably add to your arsenal. Another double ball screen just to kind of show you a little bit of our fist.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Can I have you adjust your video quick?
Yeah.
If you go up to the top of the screen where that little green bar is, you'll see a new share.
Yep.
Click on that,
New share.
and then go down to the bottom. It says optimize video. There's a checkbox down there.
Go to the bottom, optimize video. Yep.
And then uncheck the audio one so it doesn't play the
Okay.
sound.
And
And
then
then
hit
go
share.
back and share it again. I think there's a blue button in the bottom right.
Okay. Share. Is that better?
Go ahead and play it.
Okay.
Yeah, that smoothed it out some. Good.
Okay. Was it glitchy?
Yeah, it was
Just a
getting
little.
the better the quality the footage got, the it started skipping a little bit. So
Ah, gotcha. Gotcha. So we needed that grainy video.
yep.
Okay.
Take it away.
Yeah. So this would be the double ball screen that we had. We dove this guy. They chose to switch the second and stay with our pop. And then they hit right here. These guys chose to be over here. Okay, here would be another type of screen that we have. We call it jet. Everybody's seen this. It's just a flat top ball screen. And it's again very simple. Kind of ran some smoke into it. Not when we replaced, but here's a late jet. Again, this is all them in fist or in our ball screen motion offense. Okay, there's some teaching points with that one, but you'd have to call me for those teaching points right there. Yeah, and so that's just the top little jet screen that we ran a lot of. And here's another video of it. So you could add a flat ball screen and its reads, and then you could add a double ball screen to what you do. We've got, again, about 15 more different types. That's just a little ghost. Same thing, flat ball screen. They help. Pop threat, bang. Okay, same thing, flat ball screen again. Okay, this is late in the game when we're trying to, not late, but late for a national title game. So we ran just some smoke into this top little ball screen. Okay, drew the help, trying to help, boom, and we're good. Okay, so this is like a more of a flow one that adds the cuts to it. Okay, so a top ball, so that's a jet. They're going to tag right here because he's a shooter. Shooter, 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 shooter. 5 shooters. Space on the floor. Okay. He slips the ball screen. We throw it back. There's going to be a tag right here. Okay. He drives the closeout because he helped. Okay. He drives back into the defense. Okay. And now we're in the drive and kick game. You'll see some of our cuts and drives. And it's just them playing. Like, this is all them 100% reads, not having to call a thing. Just the flow and the feel of working together and them cutting appropriately, back cut, another back cut, and now what they call a stampede and a layup with all that shooting space. Another good possession. I believe we run a starter set into this, probably an ATO type of thing. Okay, just a little wash drive. And then we're in the fists, our fists. Ball screen motion. No patterns. Just play. Just went to a side ball, some interchanges on the backside. Okay, he's not being guarded. They're dorking him. Top ball, jet, randomly, back cut, finished. That would be our flow offensively. I went through it fast, but I don't have much time. I'm probably out of time, I guess. But another last clip. Okay, and this is just some of our cutting. This is them just playing. Defender's feet are flat to the ground. He sees that. That's a shooter right there. He's actually the NCAA leader in three-point shooting. Pass, cut, know how to play. Go ahead and go finish. Stop share. So Offensively, you can kind of see some of the things we do and how we evolved. On the floor, it's always a little bit easier to show you, but the way we play, our style demands decision makers. It demands guys that can play basketball essentially. And I'd encourage everybody to look at their offense and teach guys how to play rather than sending them from point A to point B. Again, it's a lot harder to coach that way because you have to teach rather than coach.
Coach, I got a couple questions. Are you all right with that?
Yep.
Do you want people to contact you directly or your staff?
Yeah, they can email me.
Okay.
And then just keep it short. Don't send a lot of stuff. And then what I usually do is give a number back. And I'm open to talking to anybody. I think the big thing is what we try to do is I'll give a lot of information, but a lot of guys call and they don't watch us prior. So if you choose to ask some questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I think the big thing is making sure that you do your homework up front and watch a lot of our basketball from years past, especially offensively, and I'll give you whatever you want. Obviously today it's hard to give you a ton and to really dive into it, but hopefully I gave you something that can help you.
A lot of feedback here. A lot of questions are how to get a hold of you. Just if you go to the website, you can his email at Coach. I think your email is on the website, right?
Good question. I hope so.
That or your staff, you can get a hold of.
If not, my assistant can get blown up. He's a hell of a lot more organized than I am. I'm a feel guy, so you know that as well as anybody. Trying to get a hold of me.
Does your amount of practice time on offense change based on your talent?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we spend about 70% of our practice on defense. I think what we do a lot differently than most is we play a ton of 5-on-5. Even up to the last game of the season, up to the national championship game, we play 5-on-5. And I want guys to understand how to play. We also do a lot of 5-on-0, which, again, that's a process piece that a lot of coaches get bored with. They want to make every drill competitive. I want it process focused. And 5-on-0 is as process focused as it gets, where the ball moves and people understand. So, practice, we get after it. We play 5-on-5. Everybody worries about injuries. We've had our fair share of injuries. This year I probably load managed more than any, and we had the most injuries we've ever had. And we were 31-1. I thought, maybe without an injury, maybe we go 32-0. I don't know.
Last question. Coach, would it make sense that if you taught all these fists or fist and pop, etc., then you let them decide off of reads in the game as long as they're in your spacing?
I think what he's asking is, can you put fist in, and then if the fist isn't working, go to Euro, and then if the Euro isn't working, go to 5 game, and then if that's what we did for quite a few years. And teams started to take it away. And what I noticed is guys just subtly, like that's the same with guys that are running a lot of plays. That's why I think turnovers go way up, is they're trying to do what the coach wants them to do. And so they're being coached rather than taught. And yes, you can do that. You can run plays. It's whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to do it the way we do it, no, you can't go from thing to thing like that and expect them to understand reads. I think it's better to stick with one of those and then adapt that one. Meaning, if I like Euro, what a lot of teams do is run Euro, then they'll have 25 different tags out of it. A Euro slip or Euro dive or Euro whatever it may be, and the coach will just call those reads. I would say that would be better for teams than to try to run multiple different offenses. I got time for more questions if there's actually more questions.
How do you cut off penetration?
I've had that question a lot. I'll give you the simple answer. Your guy will give you the answer. So your defender will give you the answer is what we always say. So when your guy looks at the ball cut, it's really that easy. And so the next question is going to be, what drills do you do to teach that? And a lot of that's just taught through them doing it and playing 5-on-5 a ton. honestly valuing cutting. What we say is cutting creates more space than shooting, but you have to have shooters to cut. And so we cut a ton. And our guys have just gotten, they love to cut. I mean, but the problem is with kids, if you get the wrong kid and you tell him to cut, you know what he's thinking? Well, he's telling me I can't shoot. It means I'm not a shoot. So, you know, you got to get the right kids that actually want to win too. That's the other piece.
Do you spend time off the court teaching mental toughness, teaching your kids team culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's so constant in our program with our culture and how we teach people. And it's developing those relationships and then constantly preaching it. So, you know, like with mental toughness for us, it's different than running a sprint and kind of kicking that door down. That's part of it. The big thing is we want you to run that sprint, kick the door down, have a smile on your face when you do it, cheer on a teammate, okay, and really push through that and stay present in what you're doing. And so if we can do that, what we found is in games, you know, when bad calls go against us, when things don't totally go our way, there's not those transitions that you see a lot of teams have, like the 5 seconds or the half a second of pouting because I got fouled or because of this or one of those. You just don't see that from our team a ton, and I think that impacts winning probably more than anything that we do offensively or defensively.
What are some of the things that you've faced that have given you problems, like defensively, defensively?
Yeah, initially we'd always, so with the ball screens, what happened, and this is why we adapted, is with fist, they would ice us and we'd have trouble. And then maybe they'd switch our pop and fist pop. And then maybe they would switch our euro or they would trap at some point. The adaptation of and the evolution of our offense is all because people took things away. And so then we'd go watch film and we'd be like, okay, they took this away, but here's what is open. And so then we just kind of started evolving. We started to create different things, you know, different ball screens, whether it be ghosts, twists, step ups, slot pick and rolls, any type of ball screen you can name, we've put in, any type of double, any type of bracket, any type of horns, and we just put them all in and put it into some motion because we got things taken away. Right now, what's the toughest to go against? You know, a team that's fundamentally sound. Like I said to begin, you know, you have to force teacher versus teacher games is what we always say, player versus player. And so, you know, if I can eliminate your scheme from the game, then your kids are going to have to depend on the fundamentals that they've learned and practice daily and the communication that they have with each other. And that's what we want to force.
You've been pretty much all high school kids recruiting, correct?
Yeah, I've done junior college and Division II transfers.
Got it. Okay. You heard it. There it is. All right. Any advice on teaching reads? I assume have to go through some kind of rough patches. What, you know, when you're putting this stuff in and teaching them how to read the stuff, how do you stay positive, but what else?
Well, I would that part of that is role definition, kids understanding who they are as players. You have to understand who you are. So our offensive philosophy is literally this: be who you are. That is our offensive philosophy. So everybody has this 60-page list of, not everybody, a lot of people have, we want to get this amount of this amount of that, this amount of this. Nope, just be who you are. So that will help initially with those reads. If I was to restart it, what we would do is itemize it down into, you know, like for instance, you saw a few of those shake reads. You saw a few of the ball side triangle reads. You saw some of the pop reads where the guy would pop and we'd pass to him. We'd duck in. Those really simple ball screen reads is where we would start. The other part of that is I would do your homework on how to actually set a ball screen, how to come off of one, okay? Even if you watch the best coaches in America, NBA, college, whatever it may be, even if you watch us, a lot of times you'll see guys that don't set it with the proper angle. They don't set their man up properly. They don't understand the actual spacing. They just see Ben McCollum put on a clinic, and I really like that double screen. It looks really cool, so I'm going to put that in. And they don't understand the why. So making sure that you understand the why with those reads and then itemizing them down one by one, spoon feeding them to your team will really help. Adding some possible patterns early might help. The only thing if you want to do it like we do it, we won't put anything in for 5-6 weeks. So like we're just playing 5-on-5 pickup, down, back, down. And we're just figuring out where they naturally move, what they naturally like to do. And then we build our offense based on that.
Last question, Coach. Any specific shooting, player development drills you really like?
Anything that works on pivots. And then how do we work on shooting? Again, it goes back to be who you are, take good shots, take kick out threes, and then get a lot of shots. I mean, it's, again, it seems it's like, well, it's that it is. I think a lot of people complicate it into thinking that there's some secret, and there's not necessarily. It's really focusing on the simple things and what we say, complicate the simple, trying to complicate that simplicity.
Coach, great job. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Have
you,
a
sir.
wonderful night. Stay safe. All right.
I'm going to go fishing, so I'll stay safe
All
there.
right. Thanks, Coach. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again for everything.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.